I love Supreme. I love Supreme. I love Supreme. I love Supreme. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning into this channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. And I'm here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, this is Akdi and I'm from Turkey, and today we are reviewing Mo Better Blues.
Yes, this is a 1990 American musical comedy drama slash, I feel like, dream sequence at the end, focused on jazz music and Denzel Washington's beautiful lips. I said it. There, I dropped it.
Oh my God.
But yeah, this is one of Spike Lee's most not famous works, but probably one of his most celebrated on the underground if you start digging into his catalog. And this film, I believe was his fourth or fifth film, and it stars an all-star cast. It's about a musician played by Denzel Washington named Minifield. We learned this at the end. Minifield Bleek Gilliam, who is a trumpeter who's very talented, but also a womanizer. And he's caught in between his love for jazz, his love for these two different women, but also his self. And many things unfold in this film. I've watched this film before. I saw it maybe 20 years ago or something like that, and I remembered it as one of the best films I ever saw, though I usually don't watch movies again. I revisited it, a few days ago with Akdi. We watched it, and I can say it's not as good as I remember, but it is. Something happened watching the ending that made me cry. So that ending still holds up. And Akdi, you can testify. You saw me cry while watching it, right?
I was shocked. I looked at you, and it's like a happy ending.
It is a happy ending. And we've watched hundreds of movies. Have you ever seen me cry?
No, I don't think I have.
No. But something about this movie's ending, even though it's a happy ending, makes me cry. And we're going to talk about that. But I do think this movie holds up. Watching it as an adult, though, compared to watching it as a teenager, I do see some flaws in it now, especially after watching hundreds of movies with Akdi and talking about it, for hours. But I still think this is a good film. There are just some plot holes in it. Spike Lee's acting annoys me the older I get, and his insistence on being in the movies. But other than that, this is a generally good film, I can say. But what did you think about it after we watched it?
Yeah, so I went into this movie blindly. I've never heard about it before. Of course, we watched some other Spike Lee movies, so I think just the overall energy was similar. It does have that, New York energy and colorful and realistic energy to it. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a bit long. I did feel the time kind of not passing at certain points. But overall, I liked most of the things about this movie. Like the music, like the overall acting. I'm not bothered by Spike Lee's acting that much because I think he's just a cute guy. Like a cute, tiny little guy. Mm-hmm. And Denzel, obviously, I didn't know he could get hotter.
We're going backwards in time, so of course, as he gets younger, you're gonna say, "Oh, he gets hotter." Come on.
No, but it's the fact that he's a jazz musician and he's playing the trumpet.
I applaud Ving Rhames for having such range, right? Like he played a cross-dressing, man on stage, and then he also played the one nigga who killed the KKK in Rosewood. You know what I mean? But Denzel's range is crazy. We've seen him be a boxer. Yeah. We've seen him be a jazz man. We've seen him, fight in the Civil War.
We've seen him in rom-coms.
We've seen him in rom-coms,
dramas, yeah.
The only thing he hasn't done is a full-on comedy, but the nigga is funny without even trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I mean, he was great. He was just nice to look at.
Okay, relax.
and also a really good actor. He's not one of the top actors for no reason. He does, make it up for it. Yeah. Basically.
Well, speaking of actors, like I said, this film has an all-star cast. Of course, Denzel Washington in the main role, of course, but backing him up, going toe-to-toe with Denzel, what I think equally one of his best performances is Wesley Snipes as Shadow Henderson, the saxophone player in Bleek's band. We also have some stars who have become, stars later, like Giancarlo Esposito, who played in Breaking Bad, right? And the funny thing about Giancarlo, when I I saw him in this movie, I didn't realize who he was when I saw it, 20 years ago. But I remember Giancarlo blowing up again because he was in Breaking Bad. And I remember he did an interview, sometime, after his success, where he said, before Breaking Bad, he was like down on his luck. I think he even thought about like committing a crime or killing himself because he was that down, in getting money. And I really feel like Giancarlo is a great actor, and nothing else comes to mind. I don't know if he acted in any other Spike Lee roles, but I'm glad he eventually got his due. But I'm surprised I didn't see him in more Spike films because he's actually a really good actor. Yeah. So shout out to Giancarlo Esposito. Other people are in here as well, like Joy Lee, who plays Indigo Downs. She's still acting. She's still doing her thing. Cynda Williams, who plays the other romantic interest of Bleek, who plays Clark Betancourt. She's still beautiful to this day. I just Googled her and she's still smoking. Okay. But other people are in here like Robin Harris, the famous late comedian who inspired so many other modern comedians as well. And he was fucking hilarious in this thing. Love Robin Harris. Samuel L. Jackson gives a cameo. I mean, Spike Lee and Samuel L. should have done more than Samuel L. and Quentin Tarantino, but I digress. Charlie Murphy does a cameo in here as well. The guy who was in Deliver Us from Temptation, his name, I forgot it right here. It was, oh my God, the big guy who played the sax. Oh, his name was Bill Nunn. Yes, William Godwin Nunn III, right? He was in Deliver Us from Temptation. He's in there. And Flavor Flav was at the beginning of the film as well. Shout out Flavor Flav. So many great actors in this film, I would say, and I don't have time to go through everything.
Yeah. And I guess, Eddie Murphy's brother?
Yes, Charlie Murphy. Charlie Murphy, yeah. Famous for his true Hollywood stories on Dave Chappelle, where he told the story about hanging out with Prince and also, Rick James in the 80s. But yeah, what did you think about the cast?
Yeah, I mean, cast was great. I think everyone's acting was great. Everyone's energy was great. Everyone was just beautiful to look at.
Except Spike.
No. And I think also, just overall, they had a very good... It was obvious that they had a great dynamic outside of the set. And I think that reflected in the movie, especially when they had, those backstage moments in the movie. That humor, they probably had it going on outside of the camera. I think that was just obvious within the movie as well, that they were just having fun, but also very, very professional and creating something great.
Yeah, I think, being on set of a Spike Lee film, especially during this time, it was a safe space for black actors, right? Because 40 Acres and a Mule was Spike Lee's production company, and it was black people in front of the camera and also behind the camera. That's what he was famous for. He's like, we bring in everybody. It's not just about famous black actors performing for white people. It's this is our space. So I'm pretty sure that set smelled like cocoa butter. The music was fire when they yelled cut and it was party time. You know what I mean? It was great.
Food was fire.
Food was fire.
Catering.
Everything was fire. A whole bunch of anti-white jokes just flying all across the room. Just funny shit that you won't see ever again. That's the reason I wanted to do a Spike film after we did Sinners, is that a lot of the conversation now online is damn, I can't even think of his name. Ryan Coogler. Is Ryan Coogler the new Spike, or has he surpassed Spike? And I feel like revisiting this film, I realized that there will never be another Spike, because of just the era, the time, how bold he was in his direction. He makes art films that went pop, and also culturally important historical black films like Malcolm X and Do the Right Thing that, stand against some of the greatest cinema. You know what I mean? And I feel like just Ryan Coogler is not at that level yet, or he never will be. He's a great action film director who's just so happens to be black and wants to bring, black people along. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think, if anything?
I don't really like to compete artists against each other, because I think everyone brings their own uniqueness into something, but the only way I can compare it is, I feel like if, for example, if the script for The Sinners came to Spike Lee, I think he could have directed it and made it a very good movie as well. But I don't know if Ryan Coogler could direct the same way Spike Lee can.
For Mo Better Blues.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or any of his movies.
Exactly.
So that's the comparison I can make, but I still think Ryan Coogler has a lot of like future. He's still young, so I think we will see great things from him in the future as well, and he might come to that status as well, like when he's older. Yeah. But I think Spike Lee, like you said, he was a revolutionary. Plus, he did it all without that much power. So yeah, I think like he's something special to congratulate.
Yeah, you know? Spike Lee was a bit rebellious towards Hollywood, and there was a lot of controversy around every time he released a movie. Every time he released a movie, it was like Tupac shot another cop. You know what I mean? Like, that's how much, you know, the culture at the time, you know, was against Spike. Because, like, this movie was controversial. Can you guess for what reason?
What?
Apparently, people thought it was anti-Semitic because of the two owners of the club where Bleek plays.
Yeah, the Flatbushes.
Yeah. Even though I didn't see it, when I started, like, looking at the reviews and also looking at the history of this film, like, the ADL came in and said, Spike, what are you doing, Spike? You know what I mean? Like, Ryan Coogler hasn't had that. You know what I mean? Like, where you have to go against the grain. And part of Spike's going against the grain was part of the reason why he never got the success he got during his prime. Like, Do the Right Thing was nominated for like an Oscar for like best screenplay or best film, but lost to like some film we don't even think about anymore. I don't even know what it was right now. But you know what I mean? Like, and Spike may continue to make great films after that, like Malcolm X, which should have won somebody an award. But it didn't, right? Because his films were considered taboo and too controversial and too inflammatory. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I think, because the conditions are not the same. It's just in my heart there's more appreciation for Spike Lee, and I also think just his movies are a bit more sincere than Ryan Coogler's.
Right. Also a bit more risky. I mean, because as we're going to talk about this film, there's some stuff in here that's like messed up. Like there's parts in here that are flawed, but you see Spike was reaching, and that's what you like to see. You like to see he's in the same vein as like a Gaspar Noé or something like that. Not scared to take risk, maybe make a flop film to try to do something different. Yeah. And that's what I think separates those types of artists. You get what I'm saying?
He likes the drama, and I think he does good like drama, as in like not sad movies, but just like, you know, drama.
Yeah, real drama. Like if a movie can make Simon Hill Keeps It Trill cried, you know, when I laugh when babies die, like that's you touching something. You know what I mean? Like I'm messed up.
He should be proud for making me cry.
Why you just smile and look at me when I said I laugh when babies die? You should have said what? But anyway,
I'm used to it.
Anyway, one more thing before we start. I just gotta say, rest in peace to some of the actors that died. So, like the person who played, Bleek's father is dead. Dick Anthony Williams, rest in peace to him. Abby Lincoln, the woman who played his mother, is dead. Rest in peace to her, and also rest in peace to Robin Williams as well. So, let's jump into the movie. So, like the first scene, it opens up in New York, Brooklyn, 1969, and there's this little boy playing the trumpet very badly with the window open in a brownstone, and little kids run up to his window and say, Bleek, 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 come out to play. And Bleek's mother comes to the window and said, boys, get out of here. You're making all that noise. He is practicing. He don't want to hang out with you. And so she goes back inside, and Bleek is like, can I go outside and play with my friends? And she said, no, not until you finish playing your trumpet. And so he says, but I've been playing all day. I hate this trumpet. Meanwhile, Bleek's father is watching a baseball game, and he's like, just do what your mother says. Bleek, just keep on playing. And so the little boys keep on harassing the mother, and one of the little boys says, oh, you always telling Bleek what to do. My mama lets me get to do what I want. Bleek comes to the window and said, I'll hang out with y'all later. And so then one of the little boys named Giant, who becomes important in the story later, says, man, fuck your mama, or something like that. Or your mama's a bitch or something like that, right? And Bleek says, no, your mama's a bitch, and I'm not a sissy, you a sissy, right? And so, yeah, Bleek keeps on playing, and he's very sad, even though he hates the horn, and his dad, comforts him. Keep on doing it. You're going to be great one day. What did you think about the opening scene?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's kind of classic Spike Lee, but I love the scenery to start with, the brownstones and the colors and the camera looks perfect. And yeah, I mean, For me, it wasn't that relatable because I never had that pressure to play any instruments. When I was little, I was playing instruments, but it wasn't pressured.
You didn't have that pressure, though, from your friends? Like, hey, can you come outside? And your mama says no?
No.
No, you never had that?
Because I was a good student. So when I wanted to go outside, my mom would let me go outside. Because, most of the times I've earned it. But yeah, I don't know. But it also took me a little bit, like you said, to my childhood when I used to go and play outside and stuff like that. And I guess this will also become important later in the movie. But I was thinking it's a kind of a normal family, because parents do pressure kids to work, to do some type of work. And it felt like a bit normal. Yeah. Especially considering the time. Yeah.
When I saw that scene, I kept thinking, it is very rare to have black tiger parents. And boy, imagine a tiger mom, but she's black and she got the belt. You know what a tiger parent is?
No.
A tiger parent is one of those parents that makes their kid do homework 7 hours a day, study on the weekends, after school programs and stuff like that. That's tiger parent.
Okay.
It's mostly in relation to Asian parents because Asian parents really want their kids to achieve academically. But yeah, seeing a black woman as a tiger parent just scared the shit out of me. Boy, I was whew. I started sweating during that scene. Wow. I was like, when's that switch coming out?
Were your parents like that?
I do remember one time my mom made me do math problems on this little chalkboard we had. I might have been 7 or 8 years old, I forgot. And I felt like I was doing them for ages, even though it was probably only 35 minutes or something. And she was like, you're going to keep doing your math. You're not going to be stupid. And I said, And so then I just sat in my room with my legs crossed and a little sob, because I wanted to go play or something like that.
Wow.
So that's why I hate math today.
That's one time.
That was one time, but I still vividly remember it. It was a red little folded chalkboard to do math and stuff like that. And the thing is, I felt like nobody even taught me. I only remember that because I don't remember anything but numbers suddenly being there and then me just having to sit there and cry. But I don't remember anybody teaching me 4 plus 4 is what is it?
Oh, wow. 16.
Oh yeah, there we go. 4 plus 4. See, you only 4. Oh, you're joking. Okay. I thought I got you. Anyway, another thing, man. I think this scene becomes very important later in the film. I think this scene sets up that Bleek never really liked the trumpet and also harbored resentment towards his mother. And I think this holds up because later in the film, his mother totally disappears. And we never know what happens to her. There's no reference to her dying, her and the dad getting a divorce, anything like that. And I think the way Bleek treats women is somehow sort of maybe getting back at his mother or being dismissive towards women because he had a negative reception towards the first woman in his life. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it could also be something getting appreciation from your mom, because that's sort of what we aim for when we were little in life, right? We want to be appreciated by our parents. We want to have their approval when we do anything, whether it's school or, other activities. And they're also our first role models. So I feel maybe because he didn't get any approval or appreciation from his mom in a direct way, that could have also been it. He's seeking that approval in other women, We don't get to see any of the other interactions with, Bleek's mom. Yeah. So who knows, maybe she was caring and nice at other times. But I have the opinion that this film is really from Bleek's perspective, his memory, and also maybe his dreams and hopes too. And so when we're just introduced to this memory, which comes across very flowery, right? Yeah. The beginning is almost too perfect. Autumn leaves falling, the kids wearing the nicest clothes. It's a beautiful house, right? Yeah. A part of me feels like this is Bleek's recalling of what his childhood was. And when he thinks about it, he thinks of a pressuring mom telling him to play, a dad who is distant but kind and nice. And so that's how he remembers childhood, and everything related to the trumpet as well. Yeah. Yeah, because we do remember those times when we are in pain more.
Yeah. like my math memory, right? There might have, I have a lot of memories of good times with my parents as well, but you also remember those bad times very vividly. Like I remember the crying in front of the math thing, but I don't remember getting taught it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So those things stick more with us.
Yeah. So moving on into the story, after that kid scene, we go and we meet Bleek in the future now. And I don't know exactly if they say the year, maybe it's the 80s or the early 90s or something like that, right? And Bleek is playing at this club, and he's the leader of this band. And the other members there are Lefty, played by Giancarlo Esposito on the piano, Shadow on the saxophone, Bill Nunn on the bass, right? And a real drummer, whose name I forgot. I believe his name was Tane or something like that. He's the drummer there. Yeah, Jeff Tane Watts was the drummer. He's a real jazz musician. So, and his name is Rhythm Jones. Anyway, and they're playing really well. The music is good. This is when we get introduced to the musical part of this film, which is a big section. The film runs for about 2 hours, and I would say about 30 minutes of the story is about just straight up performances, I would say. What did you think of that introduction?
I think one of the first things that caught my eye, and this is throughout the movie later, which now I make a connection, is that the way Bleek is playing the saxophone is like he's practicing it. Like when he was a kid. We saw him play and practice the trumpet when he's a kid. And he plays the same way. Because usually it's like when jazz musicians play, they sway and they, close their eyes. They get into the rhythm. But he's just like standing straight and like looking at his fingers. So it feels very like robotic the way he's playing compared to the other musicians in the band. That's it's like he's practicing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I was kind of thinking that, but I also noticed the microphone too. And we go to a few jazz clubs and we've seen jazz musicians, but we haven't been to a lot, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm super cultured on this. I was kind of thinking that, but I was also thinking, oh yeah, he's just focusing the trumpet on the microphone and just being really focused on his job. But that's a very good assessment, and I would say maybe, definitely he's playing it, probably remembering all those painful memories and just pressing the valves, in a mechanical way, but not in a soulful way.
Yeah, like the music that they're playing, like you said, we're not like connoisseurs of jazz, but it sounds good. It sounds like innovative. It sounds different. It sounds soulful, but just the visuals of him playing it is not.
Yeah, exactly. He's also Denzel, so he's very intense without trying.
Yeah.
So that's that as well. But one of the issues on stage is that Shadow, played by Wesley Snipes, the saxophonist, he goes on long solos, right? And he goes on solos so long that sometimes Bleek ends up walking off stage. And when he walks off stage the first time, we're greeted with Spike Lee, who is Giant, the kid that originally said your mama's a bum or something like that, is now best friends with Bleek, and he's also their manager. And Giant is telling Bleek, like, yo, you gotta tell Shadow to stop. He goes on so long sometimes I fall asleep and I wake up and he's still playing, you know what I mean? So Bleek goes out there and he matches Shadow's solo, and eventually they bow off stage. The guys walk off stage and they start talking about the girls in the crowd, like, yeah, you saw that girl with the dynamite booty, you know what I mean? And she was looking at me when she crossed her legs and fireworks came out. And they go backstage, but then Bleek starts going off on Shadow, talking about, man, you're going too long on the solos, you need to calm it down and stuff like that. And it gets a bit intense until they start laughing and giggling, and you know what I mean, they show that they're still bros. But Shadow threatens to quit. He threatens to walk away. And that becomes a major contention in the film. What did you think about that part?
Yeah. I think it was, kind of normal to have these conflicts in the band, because there always is. I feel like any band movie that we watch, there is some either competition or conflict between the members, but they always like they curse at each other, but then they start joking about it. So it's very like boy humor, like backstage talk, locker room talk-ish. And this is exactly how I imagine like backstage men talk, like about the girls in the audience, which one they're gonna take home, because I think it's just like that, being a live musician, it does give you that ego, to approach people and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a fun scene.
Yeah. No, I liked that scene as well. I liked the camaraderie of the group, how they go from times of tension to times of camaraderie and stuff like that. So I also liked in general how Wesley Snipes matches Denzel's energy, because he is such a very good actor, you know what I mean? And he can switch it on like how Denzel does. You know, he can go from 0 to 100, you know, so quick. And that's so good to have these two guys go back and forth on screen. I really love their interactions.
Yeah, I think we should give Wesley Snipes his flowers too.
Definitely.
He was also very good in the movie.
Very, very, very good. And so, you know, moving forward in the film, Denzel, Bleek is at his apartment, right? And, you know, he's up early in the morning humming A Love Supreme, John Coltrane's famous song from his famous album, you know, as he meditates looking out to the sunrise in New York City. And there's a woman in his bed, and he says, "Wake up, you're going to be late for school." And that's when we're introduced to Indigo, who is played by Joy, what was her name?
Joy Lee.
Yes, Joy Lee. Joy Lee plays Indigo, beautiful woman, Nefertiti haircut, looking like the Egyptian princess she is and our ancestors were. And what really bothered me about this scene is like she rolls out of bed and the first thing she says, "Bleek, you're a good man, but you're a bad man. You're a man who doesn't know what he wants, but gets everything he wants." Something like that, right? And I was like, oh, I didn't like the dialogue in the scene. This is the part when I started to realize this is not as good as I remember. But there is this sort of tenderness and seduction that goes on between Indigo and Bleek as Bleek gets dressed to go play baseball, you know what I mean? So now we see that he's living, you know, his full boyhood dreams. He gets to play baseball whenever he wants, and he gets to go out whenever he wants, and also have beautiful women in his bed. Oh, and look how it turned out. The trumpet actually did do something for me. What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, I think all of history, us women had some like downfalls for toxic men and bad boys, or whatever you call it. Also like artists. And so yeah, I think we also saw that case with Bleek throughout the movie as well. And with Indigo, it felt like she was more of a sensible woman, right? Because we kind of understood that she's a teacher in that first scene. So I was also thinking, oh, like she's a teacher. What is she doing with this like fuckboy, basically, a bit. But then I can see like why Bleek is charming, because he is himself. He's truly himself. Like he doesn't deny that he's a playboy. He doesn't deny that he's playing around. And he's telling her like, you know, he doesn't belong to anybody, basically, straight up. And he's always flirting, always making jokes. So I can see the, like, reasons for attraction.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, because he's a jazz artist, you tend to think, oh, he's going to be more sophisticated than, like, a rapper or a rock star. You know what I mean?
I feel his character, like, he has ego.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Bleek has, you know, BDE. But because he's also a jazz artist, I feel like women would be like, oh, he's maybe read a book, unlike a rapper or a rock star. You know what I mean? You feel like he's a bit more, you know, worldly. You know what I mean? And still he dogs you out like like Ludacris did.
Yeah, exactly. They're all the same. We just have like this illusion because of culture.
Exactly.
Like mainstream culture.
Exactly. But I remember watching that scene as a kid and being like, yeah, that's what I want when I get older and I become a famous rapper. I'm going to have my own house and I get to go out and do whatever I want and also make money in the evenings rapping all over the world. Beautiful women in my bed. Because so like this film to me was like very bro, you know what I mean? At least this part. And I feel like one of the themes of this film is like, you know, that you know, men, we have the ability to sleep with, or the double standard ability to sleep with as many women as we want and not get labeled promiscuous, a slut, a hoe, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think this film asked that question, well, what does that lead to eventually, right? And, you know, just loving what your good looks can do for you, your talent can do for you, your dick can do, because one of Bleek's famous quotes in here is, "It's a dick thing." You know what I mean? Like, just really promoting that his sexual prowess is enough to keep a woman. Where does that eventually lead to? Will that lead to love? Or if it does lead to love, is it the love supreme? You know what I mean? So that's one of the questions of this film, I think.
Yeah, I think it has more hints of love rather than like pointing out that double standard. You can draw that out if you're watching this movie in 2025, but I doubt that anyone like thought about that when they were watching it back then.
I definitely did. I think, it's not lost if you think about this as a guy, because in a way, Bleek is living every man's dream. You know what I mean? He's got a light-skinned broad looks like Michael Jackson, got a dark-skinned broad look like Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? He's got everything a player want, everything a player need.
Yeah, but do you think about the double standard of it?
I think about the double standard. It wasn't lost on me. No, I mean, even when I watched it back then, and I think a lot of men might look at this and be like, every man who has been fortunate enough to live that player lifestyle, even briefly or for a long time, knows it eventually doesn't go anywhere, right? Like, if you're a 70-year-old player, like, your life is empty. You know what I mean?
I think also you get tired of it. I don't know, like, if anyone would do it forever.
Yeah. I mean, the only person that did it forever was the guy who owned Playboy, Hugh Hefner, and he was gross. Yeah. He was gross at the end. He was like 80 years old. And
I don't even think he was, like, for a long time, I don't even think he had sex with any of the girls.
No, Hugh Hefner was gross, just like 80 years old, living in a bathrobe with like 30 bolt-on blonde bombshells running around the house and tampons everywhere. Bad. Just really gross. But yeah, another thing I gotta say though, I didn't mention this earlier, but I think this also relates to, how Indigo was infatuated by Bleek, is that Denzel and many of the other actors here actually did like musical training to learn how to play the trumpet and the saxophone. So Wesley Snipes wasn't supposed to be in this movie. Spike Lee was planning on using like real jazz musicians to tell this story, but instead he had Terrence Blanchard, a famous jazz musician, actually play, and his father, Spike Lee's father, who's into jazz a lot, composed the score for this film. You know what I mean? Bill Lee. So shout out to him. But I think, what also makes this film very believable is that Denzel was actually playing those valve notes and stuff like that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it was obvious that he took training and he did like method acting or whatever it is called. I think he actually learned how to play, which was very, very cool. And he's kind of like the only person we see up close in camera who's playing. So I think it meant a lot. And
you can't fake those valve notes. I'm sure some real jazz musicians watch that and be like, oh, Denzel really hit that.
We could hear the like melody, even though it's complicated.
Yeah.
But still see and follow the finger movement.
Yeah, you can't fake that. So once again, Denzel deserves anything positive anybody has said about him and his acting, he's earned it. Because like a year before this, he did Glory. And then he had to prepare for this. Like, come on, man, that's talent on another level. But only person that didn't need acting training for musicianship was Esposito. The pianist guy, because he's actually a pianist. Did you know that?
I did not.
Giancarlo Esposito actually plays the piano. Interesting. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyway, moving forward in the film, essentially we see, Indigo leaves the house. And, Bleek goes and plays baseball with his father. His father's like, I don't know how you do it, boy. Have women in and out of your house. And he's like, you know how I do it, Pop? I'm just a man. Pop my collar. Make them hoes holler. And his dad is like, just be careful, son. Which is the advice every father everywhere has given their son. Fathers never give good advice. This is why I always say fathers are kind of useless.
Broad thing to say. What does that entail?
Fathers are hella useless because all you say is just be careful, boy, or ask your mother. That's all, every sentence a father has ever said has boiled down to be careful or ask your mother.
Or it's like a man's gotta be strong.
A man's gotta be strong. Or no crying. That's it. 3 things fathers say. That's it. Anyway, Bleek goes back home, because his father's arm hurts and he feels lonely now. And once again, mother is never brought up. More theories to the fact that Bleek killed her. And so, Bleek Bleek is at home. And, he's practicing his trumpet. But then a woman comes to his door and he talks to her through the camera and he says, girl, don't you know I'm practicing? And she says, oh, I know you're practicing, but I just have to see you. And this is where we're introduced to Clark, right? And Clark is Bleek's other woman, the woman in red who shows up, a lovely woman played by Cynda Williams, who's actually a real singer as well and still acting, still on several shows and movies. And she's essentially telling Bleek, you need to get a new manager. Can't you see Giant isn't treating you well? He's got you playing in that club for pennies. And also, I'm a singer. I have your best interests at heart, et cetera, et cetera. And so then, Bleek says, yeah. Let's make love. And she's like, we don't make love. We fuck. And so then we see, Bleek throw her legs in the air and go deep.
That was insane.
Go deep. There's a lot of real raunchy sex in this thing. But what did you think of getting introduced to Clark's character?
Yeah, I think for me, Clark made more sense with Bleek because she was also in the music business and she was trying to give him advice and stuff like that. When compared to Indigo, right? Because I don't know. I just have this mindset that teachers are more sensible. But and I don't know. I don't know that much what to think about her in the first scenes. I like the sex scenes. They're very sensual. And kind of crazy, to see them in that position when her legs are just high up, in the air. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. But I think that scene was very important because this is when we're introduced to the title of the film, and I think anytime they throw the title of the film in there, you have to sit up in the movie theater and scream, "Oh!"
Okay, that's not a rule.
Okay. Anyway, the reason the film is titled Mo Better Blues is because Clark says we don't make love, we make the Mo better because it makes the blues Mo better or something like that, right? When they talk about sex is essentially what they say, right? And that's where I think, the film is about, where does sex leave a man if that's all he wants from women? Right? Because it's going to lead to blues. It might feel better. It might make you feel good, but it's still the blues, right? And so, even though he has wild, crazy sex with Clark, they still call it something sad because it's not real love. That's how I interpret that. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I got the same sort of sense that, he's not really truly making love to these women, that he's only, sort of entertaining them, entertaining himself. And it is, even though in those scenes it feels very intimate, it is emotionally very surface level. Mm-hmm. And the sad part is I feel like everyone is aware of it, but the women just hope that he will change one day.
Exactly. They're hoping that they can turn the wolf into the nice puppy, right?
Yeah.
And so, I also think it was very clear how they were setting it up that Indigo is a school teacher. And like you said, you see a school teacher, you think, oh, sensible, nice lady. I had a school teacher. She was nice. But then here comes Clark, woman in red. She gets naked, first scene. And, she has her legs up in the air. I think they were very clearly setting the Madonna whore, dynamic here between the two characters. Right? And not saying Clark is a bad character. In fact, I'm very sympathetic towards her because she has her own interest and also her own relationship with Bleek, but it's not the one that I think, the audience is rooting for, so to say. Because, let's just be frank, the way she looks, she presents as a more promiscuous woman, while Indigo, even though she woke up in his bed with her panties on the floor, is still considered, oh, that's the nice girl at least. She's got a good job. She's not just coming up in the house throwing up her legs. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with, profession, like you said. And also some of the things we hear from them, like Indigo says that she doesn't really go to clubs. She doesn't really go out to listen to jazz. She just listens it at home. You know, and Clark is like trying to become a singer.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, those stereotypes, like, I feel like immediately come up in our minds, even unconsciously.
Yeah. So moving forward in the story, essentially we find out that Giant has a bad habit of betting, and he's been losing money betting on sports the entire time. And also we get introduced to the main characters who own the club where Bleek's band plays, and it's Smoke and Stack. From Sinners. Essentially, the vampires from Sinners, the white ones actually escaped, and they became club owners in New York. This is my theory. Sinners and Mo Better Blues are in the same universe.
Oh, God.
You have to believe me here. You have to believe me. Basically, the club owners are money hungry, and they're just trying to keep all the money, even though they admit that Bleek is the money maker and he's the one that brings the people into the club. They say, we're making money hand over fist here. Oh, it's so good. So much money, we can bathe in it. Stuff like that, right? What did you think about, Giant's betting habit, and also the club owners, trying to F the band over by stealing more money?
Yeah, I mean, I was rooting for Giant. I don't know, it's because, like I said, Spike just looks cute. Like, he's a, tiny, cute little man that wants to do best for his friend, but he just sucks at life and generally business. So, yeah, I was, like, just seeing him bet, I was like, oh, no, like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But, yeah, it felt like foreshadowing, for sure. And then when it comes to the club owners, I didn't think of them that much. I felt like it was sort of like how it was during that time, that most clubs were like owned by these capitalists, sort of. So yeah, but they had a funny dynamic. Like it was funny. Yeah. To see them bicker about money and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really think about them, and for the people that were upset that they were, they're supposed to be Jewish, I didn't even think about, John Turturro, who's actually, I believe...
They're actually brothers.
They're actually brothers. Nicholas Turturro and John Turturro. They're Italian. Like, they're super Italian. So, and Spike Lee always has Italians in his film, because he's from New York. You know what I mean? So, he's good. I don't get how people could, like, look at that and say, oh, these are caricatures of Jewish people. Like...
They are Italian, but...
Yeah.
I didn't even think about, like, their nationality, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Spike Lee film, so of course the bad guys are going to be white. Okay, we get that. It's like going to a Kendrick Lamar album and be like, oh, why is it so pro-black? You know what I mean? Like, why are you complaining? You know what to expect. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, anyway, moving forward, well, just sitting on Giant for a bit, my biggest problem with this film is Giant's character. He's irredeemable. He's cute and likable, but if you sit down and think about it, there's nothing good about him, and he is just as much a leech to Bleek as anybody else, as the two owners of the club. He bets all the money that they make on sports. He's not able to negotiate a better deal. He got them into a bad deal in the first place. The very first scene we meet Giant, he basically tells, Bleek, fuck your mama. You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here with Giant?
I think the only, respectable part about Giant is, yes, he is a leech, and he's very dependent on Bleek, but he doesn't do it intentionally. He's an unintentional leech. So that's the, only,
So even,
good part.
He's an unintentional leech, so we should still root for him? We should still feel okay?
No, I don't think you root for Giant throughout the movie. I don't think the audience is rooting for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a bit at the beginning, but, I didn't want Bleek to fire him, and everyone was telling Bleek to fire Giant. I didn't want that to happen, but towards the end, I was like, okay, I've had enough of this guy.
I just felt like the film should have established more why Bleek wanted to protect Giant. Like at the very beginning scene when the kids were like yelling for Bleek to come out, Giant was the one that's saying, you know what, Bleek, you're actually pretty good. Or telling the other guys, hey man, let the boy play. But everything up to then just made them think like, okay, Bleek, Giant used to make fun of you, and now Bleek, you want to be friends with your bully as a way of like, what, not feeling like the loser anymore? You know what I mean?
They were not bullies, bro. That was just the friendship.
I guess.
And I think like Bleek kept Giants like with him because they were very old friends from childhood. Plus, Giant knew like how hard Bleek worked at trumpet when he was a kid, right? And on top of it, I feel like when you're an artist like this, when you're a musician and you're known in your environment, you need someone that you can 100% trust.
I guess. I mean, New Yorkers are different than us in the South. I mean, I guess the way New Yorkers show affection is by saying, "Hey, fuck your mama." You know, that's the way they say, "Hey, that's my boy. Hey, fuck your mama too, bro." Like that's how they talk, I guess. Yeah. I also skipped over a scene. There was a scene when what's her name? Clark. Bit Bleek's lip. And he got really mad at her about that. And she tried to like laugh about it, but he took it very seriously. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think that was obvious, sort of like Bleek saw his lips as the moneymaker. That's his image. He can't play without his lips. It's important for him. So it was very obvious that he put his profession, he put his like artistry on top of Clark.
Yeah.
Because even in the middle of sex, like he stopped it and he started like sort of being rude to her.
I think that was a bit intentional, because that's a hard bite. If you bite somebody that hard, if they start bleeding, I think you did that a bit on purpose.
Some people do that. Like some people like that.
I guess. I just feel like, you know, once again, Clark wants to be on stage. Maybe she was secretly trying to, like, weasel her way on stage. Like, oh, Bleek, you can't play. Well, I can fill your spot. I can sing. You know, I've been practicing. You know.
I don't think so.
I think so. I think she was a groupie. She's trying to find her way in. Anyway, there's just basically, after that, like, a few more comedic scenes. There's a scene with Spike Lee playing Giant, arguing with Eddie Murphy's brother and a 5%er in front of the club, which is pretty damn funny, I guess. You know, when I saw that scene as a kid, when I was like studying to be a 5%er in the 120, I'm like, oh, Spike Lee is super black. Like he put even the 5%ers in a film. Like that's crazy. And then after that, there's a scene when Lefty comes into the dressing room with his French white girlfriend, and the other people are like, you know, everybody else's girlfriends stay outside, but yours is the one that keeps violating. And he's like, y'all just don't like her because she's white. And then he says, she's a sister, you know. And then they all start roasting his ass like, that ain't no sister. Whose sister is that? Ain't my sister. But what did you think about the comedic scenes?
Yeah, I think that's what makes Spike Lee's movies sincere and wholesome, because even though we have the main story going, and the main story is kind of dramatic, maybe you can say, he has these, like, you know, comic reliefs, and also he shows a part of, like, black culture there. Like putting a 5%er, it's a part of black culture. Really deep black culture. Yeah, that's like an unreleased Biggie song. Yeah, and you know that stuff. Like I knew what a 5%er was when I watched this movie, but if I didn't know, that's the kind of stuff that would make you say, oh, wait, let me Google that. Like, what is it? And same with, like, the white girlfriend. You know, that's another part of being black in America. Like, if you have a white girlfriend, your friends are going to make fun of you. Yeah. So you have these, like, you know, parts of culture, side stories sort of make you laugh and make you remember things, make you think about things. So, yeah, I really appreciate that about this movie, and maybe that's why this movie was a bit long. Yeah. And I think some of the scenes with the French white girlfriend could have been erased. I really like those. I like those. I like the one in the beginning. I like some of the conversation, but I felt like sometimes it went on for too long. Like they're just bickering for 5 minutes. No, it's just funny. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, I just like Spike Lee's sense of humor on making, you know,
really black stuff, like just funny in a short comedic way. I really think he's a great comedic writer. You know, if he did a full-on comedy, in fact, he did. Girl Number 6. We should probably watch that one time. But yeah, Spike Lee, I think he's funny in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, the 5% in part was great. You don't see that in films. I don't think that's ever happened again. To have a black man saying, "Yo, listen, the black man is God, the original man, the cream of the planet Earth."
We have to watch a movie about 5%.
There literally is none. Like, I can't even think of one. There's maybe like a YouTube documentary like made in 2010 on like a Nokia phone.
I'm gonna find one and we're gonna watch it.
All right. I know quite a bit, but I'll probably be still educated about it. And yeah, French Girlfriend was funny. But yeah, basically, you know, going into the film, the rest of the film, a lot of it is just, you know, a continuation of Giant losing money in gambling, getting harassed by, you know, Samuel L. Jackson and another black man who are sent out to like break his fingers for like not paying his debts. Bleek bouncing in between Indigo and Clark. Shadow sort of alluding to the fact that he, you know, slept with Clark or wants to sleep with Clark, stuff like that. And there's a lot of different parts here, but not that much. We see, you know, Shadow trying to hide the fact he's cheating on his girl and different things that are happening, but it's pretty much, you know, a story that seems to get dragged out or that stays static but has depth into it. So the story doesn't get more detailed. It just gets deeper in the characters and their relationship to each other and the tensions. We see Bleek and Shadow, you know, beef over the band, you know, because Shadow still wants to play solos and Bleek still writes music that, you know, the band doesn't really like, you know. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of that.
And
what did you think?
They're also struggling with the payments, right? The club, because of the deal Giants made, and also like the club's owners are greedy. They're not really getting enough money that they deserve, possibly. So yeah, I liked, you know, seeing those different dynamics between Indigo and Bleek, and then Clark and Bleek, because they did have different dynamics, though. I think it was also a bit foreshadowing, like the way women were starting to get uncomfortable. Yeah. With the situation.
Yeah, like, you know, there's a scene when Bleek comes home after the club and he goes to Indigo's house and, you know, he's making love to her and stuff like that. And then there's another scene when he's with Clark in his apartment and he gets up after they've had sex and he starts, you know, playing on the piano, writing a song. She licks him in the ear and she says, "Does it tickle?" And he says, "Yes," and doesn't even laugh or make a face or anything. And then she starts ranting about, you know, Bleek is just gone into his own world. God bless you, Bleek, and like very sarcastically. Meanwhile, he's thinking about this new song he writes. He performs this song, you know, called Love. And then after, you know, he does this great performance, he bursts into the office of the club owners and they basically tell him, like, "Get the fuck out of here. We're not going to pay you any more money. You know what I mean? We have a contract." So, yeah, there's a lot of dynamics there. Any comments about any of those scenes?
Yeah, I think also, like, one of the important parts of having this conflict between club owners and the musicians, I think it's still relatable to this day between like musicians and producers and stuff, like not producers but labels owners. And label owners. Like, we still have the same dynamic that new and up and coming artists make terrible deals and they get stuck with it. They don't earn enough money until like they're, I don't know, retired or something, you know, just to, you know, have a breakout, basically. So unfortunately, like, that's still something that's relatable, and I liked having that there as well as a conflict, and that sort of seeing the reality of like you can't really do anything, which is sad.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you could draw parallels to the modern music industry, to the music industry then. I mean, the music industry is still just run by gangsters. It's exploitative. Great artists get the least out of their art. It's, you know, the same song and dance, right? But the film gets a bit, you know, interesting, right? When one day, you know, at the club, guess who shows up? The girl who says, "I don't like to go to clubs, you know, I like to stay inside." Indigo pops up in the club wearing a red dress right before Bleek and his band are coming on. And guess who else showed up in the club with a red dress? Clark as well. Giant runs into the back and says, "We have a code red," pun intended, to Bleek. And he says, "Remember that time in Paris when I said don't get Clark and Indigo the same dress? Remember when I told you that? And you said, what's the chances of both of them showing up at the same time wearing the same exact dress?" And then he says, "Now is the time." And it's like, oh shit. So it's like, that was the time for your boys to help. And the boys did not show up. Yeah. They did not show up. Because the mission now is, all right, Shadow, you go out there and talk to Clark and you distract her. And I'll go talk to Indigo. And then after you're done talking with Clark, I'll switch with you. And the shit fails horribly because, number one, Bleek sent his number one op, Shadow, who wants to secretly start his own band, to go and talk to Clark, and then also imply that, you know, Bleek doesn't really care about you and he's not helping you shine as a singer. Meanwhile, you got to talk to Indigo, who's smart enough to realize there's another pretty girl over there wearing a red dress. Yeah. Like, it was just all fucked up. What did you think about that scene?
That scene was a bit weird for me. Because even though I knew kind of, like, I had the feeling that both of the women knew Bleek was, you know, being dishonest or having, like, other side ventures. It was weird because they knew who the woman was, the other woman was, right? And they still sat there and they still, like, sort of listened to Bleek making excuses. And I was like, girls, like, are you okay? How are you still, like, sitting there and not, like, pouring a glass of wine down his, you know, head? Right. Well, it's a dick thing. I was a bit annoyed with the woman. I don't know. It was a bit annoying, but I also have to say, I think, for me, Shadow gained more and more sympathy throughout the movie as we reached the end. Because I felt like he generally stick to the bro code by not actually being intimate with Clark, but he did tell her the truth. And I think she deserved to know the truth. Yeah. And what, like, everything he said, none of it were lies. They were all true. So I couldn't really even blame Shadow for kind of, you know, stabbing Bleek in the back. Yeah, he did eventually sleep with Clark, but it was later. It was sort of after a major fallout came. And generally, yeah, none of the main characters come across as enemies. They just all have, or bad guys, essentially, except the club owners, right? Generally, they all have their interests, and there is a genuine love between them. They might fight, they might fall out, but there is a love between them. And I think also maybe that's why the film didn't result in Clark and Indigo just fighting. Right? There's never a scene. I wasn't expecting them to. I wasn't expecting that, fight. But they were in the same room at the same time over the same guy. Yeah. And the film didn't dissolve into Jerry Springer, where they're just like, "Bitch, that's my man." Like none of that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Wasn't even expecting them to, like, go at each other. I was expecting them to go at Bleek. Like, why would they go at each other? Well, that's still, even though that's what you expect, in the real world, what women actually do, like just like how men do, is fight over dick. That's community. You get what I'm saying? And men do the same thing too. Men do even worse. They kill each other over women, start wars over women. I get that. I mean, I would understand that if it's a very committed relationship or a marriage or whatever, but in their case, it wasn't. It wasn't, but still, that has never stopped two hood rats fighting over a community dick. They're not hood rats. They're not hood rats. I'm not saying that. But in the real world, women be fighting each other. Have you ever heard of women fighting each other over a man? Of course. That's fucking with both of them. Yeah. Of course. It is dumb, right? Yeah. But it still happens. But in this film, you know, everybody maintains a certain level of class and dignity because we're in the jazz club. Yeah, I guess. Because, like, if that was me, Bleek, you know, I would have just left and blocked and never called again and all that stuff. Well, it was the 90s, you know. They could show up at your house like Love Jones and sort of force his way in. Remember that? Yeah, that was very rapey. This was a different era. I think also you have to remember, like, the women didn't act up at that time because, you know, patriarchy was in full effect, man. It was peak patriarchy. It was the 80s, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? Women needed us. You needed that dick thing. Okay. I'm just saying. I'm turning off. I'm just saying, Indigo worked as a teacher making what, in 1990, like what, $12,000 a year.
Clark works at a fucking CD store, making $4 an hour. They need Bleek.
Bleek is not rich either.
Bleek's apartment was balling.
Yeah, but like he wasn't getting paid enough.
We didn't even see. Hold on, wait. Where did Clark live? Okay, no. Indigo had like a little house, but I'm pretty sure it was her grandma's house. Like every time Bleek came over, she said, "Shh, my granny's sleeping." You know what I mean? Like, so, and Clark, you know, she looked like, you know, she got a rich baby daddy or a rich white father.
Maybe the second one.
Maybe the second one. But yeah, basically after the scene at the club where the two women obviously saw each other, you know, Bleek says, you know, I'm going to go home with you, Clark. And he ends up going home with Clark, and she lays down to have sex and stuff like that. And, you know, they're making love and stuff like that. And then, you know, while they're having sex, Bleek says, Indigo. And then Clark gets up and says, you know, how dare you call me another woman's name? And he said, I didn't say another woman's name. I said Clark. And then we see Indigo as if they were having sex. And she says, how dare you call me Clark? You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So then there's this interesting scene when Denzel is in the same room with both of the women while they're yelling at him.
Yeah, there's like this back and forth between two, like, you know, memories or experiences with two women.
Yes.
But he's sort of, it feels like he's having the same conversation with two different women, but just a bit different.
And it makes you think, well, which one actually really did happen? Because he couldn't have slept with both that same night. That's impossible. And had that same fight. That's way too outlandish. And this is what makes me think that this film might be a dream, or large parts of it might be a dream or a reimagining. I think this is when we see the break in reality of the thread of the film, and this is where possibly everything afterwards could be hypothetical, in my opinion. It could have fallen apart at that moment for Bleek, and he, you know, just continues playing jazz with his boys, gets some new women. Who knows? That's my opinion, though. This is really far-fetched. I'm really going there.
Okay. I didn't get, like, you know, not reality from those scenes. I was thinking, okay, it probably happened like a night after, or maybe at the same night when Bleek fucked up with Clark. Then he went to Indigo, and then the same thing happened or something. Or maybe they're like one night apart or something like that. So I wasn't getting like the dream-like state there.
I got it. I see it in here. I think, you know, there are parts of this film that break with reality, and maybe that's one of them. Maybe not the rest of the dream. The rest of the film is a dream, but that shows that in this film, the possibility of non-reality existing could happen, and I think that's important for the ending.
Okay.
All right, but basically, like I said, moving forward, you know, Giant is getting his ass kicked by these gangsters who are chasing him down. You know, Spike Lee does his famous sliding shot where the character sits down while the world is passing them by. It's very reminiscent.
Yeah.
You have several of his other films. You know, when a character is about to die or meet their end, you know, he has this shot he does, which is so Spike Lee. And also we see, you know, Shadow starting to make moves on Clark. He hollers at her at the store, and he reveals himself to be a broke boy because he pulls out his American Express and it gets declined as he tries to buy $3,000 worth of CDs.
Back then.
1990. In 1990. I can't believe there were people that spent a mortgage on CDs back then, bruh.
Yeah.
Imagine showing you were ballin' by how many, like, I don't know, Sir Mix-a-Lot tapes you had. Yeah, like, that's insane.
Back then, rent was like $150.
Yeah, for a fly-ass apartment, like downtown Manhattan.
And that's like what? Like a rent for like 2 years or something?
2 years worth, so that you can put it in your home stereo system with a big back TV. You know, that TV that had like insane stuff, man. But basically Shadow and Clark start to get close. And there's also a scene where there's a house party, and Shadow and and Bleek get into it about the jazz that they're making. You know, Bleek is going off on this tangent that everybody does every time you get drunk and you're pro-black. You say, man, jazz used to be ours, man. It used to be ours, but then the white boys took it, man, and nobody wants to hear jazz anymore. And Shadow says, you know, nobody wants to hear the shit you making, man. Where people want to come where they hear shit they like. You know what I mean? And that's kind of real. I think that's a deep discussion. I don't know. Do you have any comments on any of that?
I don't really have comments because I don't think it's real. I still think all kinds of people listen to jazz. So I don't really think it's, you know, listened more for one race or the other, or I don't think it's listened less. If anything, I think people are trying to listen jazz more now than a couple of years ago. Like, I guess early 2000s and maybe like... Right. Late 90s. It was a lot about like pop and rap and hip hop, but I think people are valuing it more now. Yeah.
Maybe not traditional jazz, but like how jazz has evolved into like Afrobeat and Amapiano, because like online you find those mixes like Afro, piano, jazz, lo-fi, beats to study to. Yeah. Like that's a whole playlist you can find.
And that also, but I think also people do go to jazz clubs still. You know?
Yeah. Well, we go.
We go, and the one we go, it's not in the center of the city yet. It's full
every time. Every time it's packed, packed full.
So there is every city has a jazz club that's always running,
and it's always you know, one of the hottest places to be. You know what I mean? Because people like live music. It's rare to get live music. I mean, yeah, I'm tripping because you know we were just in New Orleans. And we literally was surrounded by jazz. Like, it's not a game. You land there and you just see musicians on every corner playing that real traditional shit. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it is authentic. But I think Bleek does have a point, though, in the sense that, you know, jazz has been sort of taken over by a white power structure. Because the number one selling jazz artist of all time is Kenny G. You know what I mean? Literally, he's probably one of...
I like Kenny G, but I don't know if he's that much of a legend.
Well, you know, he's...
In his own way, he is.
I'm not going to debate that Kenny G isn't talented, but it goes to show, like, you know, the Eminem effect. The number one selling rapper of all time, Eminem, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, I do think, to some degree, jazz has been subsumed. You know, like rock and roll was subsumed. And, you know... I do think there are more white jazz players in the world than black jazz players. And it's not the same with hip-hop, right? Hip-hop is still, you know, pretty much with the culture that created it. But other art forms are not so much. There's more white rock players than black rock players. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of like the classic move. Because even with like... rap and hip-hop, it is mostly seen as a black music. There are still like white rappers out there trying to make it, especially after Eminem came out, right? So I feel like there's always that takeover. Just with rap, it's special. That takeover did not happen. It's just because white people, they can't say the N-word.
That's actually been like the greatest offense. That's literally like the greatest offense of hip hop. It's the fact that it can't sound as good if nobody can say the N-word. If you can't rhyme trigger with hitter, with figure, with the with the natural conclusion, if it can't go, it's not gonna flow. But shout out to Eminem for still having one of the coldest N-word bars of all time. I drink more liquor to fuck you up quicker than you wanna fuck me up for saying the word. Still one of the hardest bars of all time. Shout out to Eminem, man. He a G. Greatest of all time. Anyway, continue.
Wow, look at us. We ended up celebrating the white rappers. We can't escape the chain.
You can't escape it. You can't, what is hot is hot. What is dope is dope. You know what I mean? Anyway, so yeah, moving forward in the film, you know, Giant's life is like really on the line. He's getting harassed by these gangsters all the time. He goes to everybody he knows, you know, for money, and only a few people give him money, like Lefty, you know, gives him a few dollars, but everybody else is like, no, because he's tapped out on everybody. And the only person he can come to now is Bleek. And Bleek says, you know, I'm going to pay to get you out of this, but because you can't get me out of my contract with the club owners, I got to fire you. So once I do this deal with you, you have to leave, man. I love you, but you got to go. And that was a very moving scene. What did you think about that?
Yeah. I kind of thought like the way that they would break up, or, you know, the way Giant would get fired would be more dramatic. But I like that it wasn't. It was sort of mutual. And I think that's why we generally don't hate Giant. Because, you know, he knows he's bad. And he kind of accepts it when Bleek fires him. Mm-hmm. And he still says, like, yeah, like, I know I'm fired, but I'm still here, you know. If you need anything, I'm still your friend, and all those things. So, yeah. And it's kind of, like, also ironic how mature Bleek is when it comes to business and friendship and stuff like that. But he's, like, so immature in relationships.
Yeah, because when he breaks up with Indigo and Clark, he says, look, baby, you're either with it or you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I guess it's not a dick thing no more. Yeah. But with, with this boy, he's like, listen, man, we're going to make a deal, an offer you can't refuse. You know what I mean? And yeah, it is very mature. And I think that scene was about growth, which I think part of what this film is about. You know, like he did love Giant, but he had to realize that love wasn't enough in this relationship. So he's going to give an act of love for him, but it might not be enough. You know what I mean? To keep him in his life, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, very powerful scene. I liked it. It was done very well. Later on that night, Bleek tries to call up Clark to, like, confess to her, like, I miss you, I want you back, and stuff like that. And Shadow is knocking the pussy out the frame. All types of swirls and curls and grooves in that pussy. He dancing in that. He doing the Dougie and shit. Shit is wild. And Clark is just hollering for dear life. And then when the voicemail comes on, she's like, no, wait, let me turn it off. And Shadow's like, nah, you gonna take that. Take that. I want to hear it. I want to hear that.
That was like a weird fantasy.
That thing was hard as a rock. That thing got stronger. So yeah, what did you think of that scene?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Was it at this point that they fell out as well with Shadow and Bleek?
No, that comes a bit later.
Okay.
That comes a bit later.
Yeah, I mean, that, like, the fact that they wanted to keep him on in the phone, that was definitely weird. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I was kind of wondering, why did Bleek call Clark first? Like, does he just really likes Clark more in general?
He wants to give Clark that cock.
Well, yeah.
That was a booty call. It was 3 a.m.
I know, but still, like, he also has Indigo. Mm-hmm. So he could have called Indigo as well.
Well, maybe Indigo wasn't accepting those calls, most likely.
I don't know.
She's a respectable woman. She's respectable. Plus, she got papers to grade, homework to assign. I'm just saying, she's a busy woman. Meanwhile, Clark just gets... Literally, she just sells CDs and gets, hopefully not STDs.
Wow, that's the dream life.
Okay.
Selling CDs and getting pounded.
I guess back then, if you're working at a CD store, that might have been high end. Like, you know what I mean? Because people coming in dropping $2,000 on that new Kenny G.
I mean, yeah, back then they didn't have Spotify and iTunes.
Yes, yeah, it was crazy, and like, YouTube. Yeah, man, it was just a wild movie, man. As far as the sex scenes, because Spike Lee's sex scenes are just out of control. Like, he has them.
This was the most out of control sex scenes I've seen in a Spike Lee movie.
Oh, you need to see He Got Game, and He Got Game. He goes absolutely insane.
I can tell by the name.
Like the scene when Shadow is like beating it up on the balcony in broad daylight. Clark is like, say my name. It was just insane. The fact that Wesley Snipes is as dark as night and they called him Shadow is, number one, hilarious in and of itself, bro. Like, nobody else noticed that.
I didn't even think of that.
No, Wesley Snipes was flamed all throughout his career for being like the darkest nigga that ever existed. Like, the Sudan come to life. Like, but
no comment.
No, you better not make a comment, Shiloh Hendrix.
Don't call me that.
I'm joking. Anyway, the next day, Bleek learns from Giants that Shadow has been sleeping with Clark and stuff like that, and Bleek goes into the rehearsal spot at the club where he's gonna play, and he runs into Shadow. Shadow's like, I'm not going out there unless I get more money. And Bleek is like, get your hands off me. And he's like, no, man, we need to fucking talk. And then they start fighting, right? And they really go at it. And Giant comes out of nowhere and says, yeah, kick his ass. Just an instigator, bro. But I think Shadow started that fight. He knew that was going to happen. He knew word got around that, he was smashing Clark now.
He got all that. He got pumped up from all that sex.
Yeah.
He was just saying, I'm just a bear, baby. I'm just a bear.
He did say that. He said, I'm a bear. I'm a bear. Who says that?
And then he went out there and he said, I'm going to show him I'm a bear, too. And he got in a fight.
Yeah, he got into a fight.
And plus, he'd been wanting to, make his own band. And he was sort of looking out, I think, excuses to get fired a bit.
Yeah.
So I think that just made sense for him to do that.
I definitely think it was an excuse. Anyway, the band sort of breaks up a bit with Shadow gone, but they still go on stage, the remaining members, to do the show. And, Bleek is playing like a heavy, rhythm. It's different than all the other songs we've heard in this film, which were
so fast.
It's so fast. It's a bit angry. It's a bit agitated as well. The lights are red. He's playing with intensity. It's not like how you said he was playing in the beginning, very focused. Like he's now letting it rip, right? And meanwhile, Giant is in the bathroom and he gets picked up by the mob guys who take him outside and say, you still haven't paid, and they start whooping his ass. Even though Giant is screaming for Bleek to help, he either ignores him or he can't hear over the horn. And while, Bleek is playing like a madman, Shorty is getting his whole face caved in. He then, instantly runs to the back where Giant is, and Giant is almost half dead. And, Bleek tries to fight the guys who are beating him up, and makes one of the guys punch his horn, but then the guy grabs his horn and starts beating the crap out of Bleek and knocks him in the face with his horn. And that really messes up his lips, right? And these guys get left for dead in the trash in the back alley. What did you think of those scenes?
Yeah, I did not think I would see Samuel L. Jackson beating up Denzel. I did not want those two fighting because I love the movie. But I think that scene was very brutal because their faces, it was very just their faces were fucked up.
Yeah, Spike's eye is about to pop out of its socket.
Yeah. It felt like it. I think at some point I did ask, are they in a coma or are they dead? Because that felt a lot. And I liked how they combined it with that fast-paced music scene where, Bleek was just sort of, for the first time, improvising, I think. And, then he went out and it was also sort of he fired Giant, but they still are friends and they're still by each other's sides. If they die, they die together sort of vibe, the friendship vibe, which I liked. But I was also sad because I think at this point it was obvious that Bleek, because his mouth got effed up, he wouldn't be able to play.
I didn't catch that at first. And in fact, the first time I watched this film, I didn't catch that. And then when I watched it the second time, I did. You know what I mean? So, yeah, the good observation. The fight scene was very brutal as well. And afterwards, after he gets his ass beat, he goes to the hospital. We see that Bleek's mouth is totally messed up. And his father comes back, and the father says what every father says after their son gets into a fight. I remember your first fight. I was so proud of you. Everything fathers say are so toxic.
That does not help.
That does not help. But dads just like to reminisce. Whenever you're in trouble, they don't ever say, all right, this is what we're going to do to get you out. They say, I remember the first time I caught you drinking my beer.
Are you going to be like that too?
I'm just saying, dads are just kind of useless. Dads are the most useless people.
I can agree with that.
Okay.
Well, that's about me.
Anyway, Bleek becomes like a hermit. Basically loses his mind in his apartment, drowning in jazz records, doodling to himself, listening to John Coltrane and Miles Davis for the millionth time. He then shows up at Shadow's bar where he's now playing, and Shadow has formed a band with Clark. And what I think is the best song in the film comes and this, Clark's solo song where she's singing like, there's a hustler out in Harlem and he's gonna break your heart.
That does not do it justice.
Whatever. It's really good. Thank you, Akdi. You know you can sing for us.
No, I don't know the song.
There's a hustler out in Harlem.
Okay.
Anyway, her song is really beautiful and dope. And Bleek shows up and he's like, hey guys, it's me, Bleek. And there, Shadow says, hey, come on, man. Get your bitch ass up here. And so Bleek starts to play, but he sucks. He sucks now. And he then, walks off the stage embarrassed and hands the trumpet to Giant and says, Giant, whatever, keep it. And Giant says, I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to sell it. What did you think about those scenes?
Yeah, I think the first time I felt like sort of out of reality, dreamlike vibe was the depression scenes, because I don't know if I saw it correctly. I saw the trombone just flying, and I wasn't sure if Bleek hanged the trombone from the ceiling with ropes actually, or that he was seeing the trombone fly. So in that part, it felt like, oh, okay, I guess he's having hallucinations a bit, because he was depressive and he was remembering Indigo, I think, and Clark maybe. So yeah, I thought that dream state came in there for me for the first time.
Yeah.
And yeah. Were you gonna say something?
No, I just looking at the scenes again. Yeah, when he's in that house scene, all despondent with papers everywhere, house totally disheveled, right? He's reminiscing with Indigo and talking about the first time he fell in love. And, he's revealing the first time he fell in love was actually last Tuesday, when he met her or something like that, right? And he starts to realize, maybe I do love Indigo, right? But it's still, dreamy, stuff like that, you know what I mean? And part of me feels like maybe, what's happening here is a dream. You know what I mean? Or it's not as real reality.
Yeah, I mean, just now sort of contemplating it, the flashback that he has, it looks like they're on a date. And we never see Bleek on a date outside of the house with any of these girls. He's always in the house fucking. So I don't know if that's something he wished it happened, or if that's something he dreamed about it before when he was with Indigo. So yeah, maybe that could be a dream or a hallucination or something.
All are possible. It actually happened and he's missing it. It's a dream that he wished happened, he should have done this instead of spending so much time on the trumpet. All of those are possibilities. But go ahead.
Yeah, I really liked Clark's song as well, and I think it also kind of summed up her emotions and the general story around Bleek as well, because it felt like the song was for him. And I didn't necessarily get the vibe that Bleek was bad now. It felt like maybe his mouth was hurting, or that he couldn't really focus, and maybe there was too much trauma around the trumpet or something like that. And he just decided to walk out. That's how I felt during that scene.
I think, it doesn't sound as bad to us. Maybe just amateurish, and maybe really worse in his mind, because he knew how to really play in the past. 50 Cent famously got shot in the mouth and the bullet went out the other side. And that changed his speech pattern. If you listen to 50 rapping before he got shot in the mouth, he doesn't sound as unique until after, when he talks like this, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think Bleek now might have had more talent to make something more unique, but he didn't have a chance to practice it. He's still trying to play the old way. But this film is interesting for telling the story of our hero who loses his ability to be a hero. He doesn't have now the tool that could get him the girls and get him the fame and the notoriety. So now what can he do? You know what I mean? And so the film maybe becomes a desperate story of a man trying to salvage what he can of his life that he got from this thing he dedicated towards his life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm kind of mad at that. Because it feels like, as I was watching it, I guess we'll talk about it more as well, but it felt like you know, like you said, he was desperate for that ending. Like, he didn't really want it, and he settled for it, you know? Which I feel like it was sort of an injustice to Indigo.
I disagree. I think he really wanted it, and it didn't happen. And we'll talk about that. Let's go to it right now.
Okay.
Essentially, you know, ending scene, Bleek goes to Indigo's house. And
sorry, can I say one more thing?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. When Giant said, I'm not going to sell it, I was thinking he's going to sell it and play and gamble with it.
That was worth it. That was worth it, yes. I'm not going to sell it. Literally 5 minutes later, bet it all on the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. Okay. Anyway, last scene of the film essentially is, you know, Bleek going to Indigo's house, and she's like, I haven't seen you in a year, you know, and he's like, I've been missing you, I've been thinking about you, you know, I'm sorry, but I love you, and I want to be with you. And she's like, you know what you did to me, you betrayed our trust, I can't trust you, get out of my house. And he's about to leave, but then he comes in, and he says, you know, I have to be with you, I'm so sorry, you know, and she's like, you know, go be with Clark. And he's like, no, I want to be with you, or something like that. And she's like, you're just playing, you just want me because you can't play anymore. Did you go to the club before here or something like that? And that also lets me think this is not real, because how does she know? If that happened, it literally just happened like an hour ago. There's no cell phones, there's no texting.
I mean, she can guess, knowing his character.
Yeah, but she said, I haven't seen you in a year. I don't know where you've been. And then she says, were you at the club with Clark already? And it's like, bruh, I just showed up at the house, and so how do you know I can't play? That's one of the things that stuck out to me. Anyway, long story short, there's like kind of like, you know, it kind of gets abusive. She's like, get out of my house, and he's like holding her. It's like, no, I'm not going to leave. And so eventually he says, you know, save my life, save my life. And that's like the winning line that convinces Indigo to, like, you know, kiss him, and they, you know, they bond again. He picks her up, goes upstairs. He also mentions, like, I want to have a son, you know what I mean? And then, like, the sun rises in New York, and next thing we know, we see Indigo pregnant. Then, you know, she gives birth in the hospital. And this was actually the first film that ever had a live birth on screen. This is a little trivia for people. And
that was insane.
That birth scene is actually very real. Like, you see the placenta come out and everything. And
you see the kid drop from the vagina.
Yeah, this is a fact. A trivia for anybody out there. The first film to have a baby being born live on camera is this film. But yeah, basically, you know, the little boy grows up, and you know, he gets to meet his grandfather, and his grandfather's very nice. He gives him a baseball and a mitt, you know what I mean, to play with. Because, yeah, we know the boy's going to like baseball just like, you know, his granddaddy and his father and stuff like that. And, you know, Indigo and Bleek get married. We also find out Bleek's name is Minifield, which explains a lot. Because that's why he got roasted a lot on the playground. Minifield Gilliam. But yeah, everything is like too perfect. Like Shadow is at the wedding with Clark dancing, and all the bandmates are there. Everybody's smiling and happy. The little boy grows up, and now he's playing the trumpet with Bleek as his teacher. It's in the exact same house, in the exact same spots, and nothing else has changed. And now in the future, little boys run up to the window and they say, Miles, come out to play. And, you know, Indigo comes out the window and says, boys, stop all that foolishness. He is practicing now. Don't come near my window with that. But then, you know, Bleek says, come on, let the little boy play. And the little boy goes out to play, and then Indigo and Bleek say, oh, you know, you always let him have so much fun. He's like, well, he gets to have fun. You know what I mean? And the film ends with a beautiful scenery where it all comes full circle, and a little kid is drawing the end on the sidewalk. And the same boy who played Bleek at the beginning is also the same boy, Zachy L. Housey, is the same boy who played Miles at the end. The same actor. Though it is not the same character, Miles the son. Anyway, that's the end.
Okay.
What did you think of the ending?
Okay, so here is my take, kind of. Even though I am a bit mad for Indigo, I also support the fact that you shouldn't hold on to grudges. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I do like the ending. It's like this happy little montage of, like, you know, kind of making up for your mistakes. And I also want to say that, yeah, like today, for example, therapy is like highly requested, and people like want to go to therapy for, you know, their unresolved childhood issues. But I think this ending was sort of an example that also human beings are capable of resolving their own traumas through the things that they live in life and through the people that they meet that might help them to uncover those traumas and get over them and make peace with them. So for me, it was sort of symbolizing that Bleek, he had some type of trauma with his mom, maybe, like about being seen by his mother and being approved by his mother. So he kept that grudge towards the art, the music, but also towards women as well. And then he sort of figured out his trauma along with Indigo, with Clark, with Shadow, with Giant. But yeah, that's how I sort of unravel it right now.
Okay, so this is a happy ending to a very dramatic film, but beautiful film.
Yes.
The reason I cried while watching the ending is because I don't believe it happened. And it's really just the fever dream of a man who is imagining what life could have been like. And really, really, he was close to having that, but his ego got in the way. I don't believe that, you know, Indigo actually said yes. She actually kicked him out of the house and he was left in the rain. And now all we're just imagining is, you know, the perfect life. Because it's way too perfect. You know what I mean? And I also think it's sad because, like, that desire for perfection and the desire to cure our childhood traumas by doing it again is also very, like, tragic in its own way. Because there's no way you can have your family and it be so perfect. You know what I mean? There's no way that you're going to be in the same house with the same opportunities because things change around you that you can't even control. So even if this is, you know, how life sort of turned out for Bleek, even if it is real, it actually is not going to be this. It's still false. It's still not real because his son will still have issues that he can't deal with, or content or problems with his parents that, you know, everybody has with their parents. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's like very tragic, but it's beautifully tragic. It's one of the best endings I've seen in a film. For how it's shot, how real it is with the live baby popping out the pussy, you know what I mean? And how happy Denzel looks and the grandfather looks, and it feels so real. You want it to be real, but it's not, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to deny it. I also got the feeling of, like, I had this question in my head, like, is this all real? Or is he dreaming this? I also got the same question in my head. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, we don't see all the aspects of their relationship. So obviously, I think we assume, yes, they also fight with Indigo and Bleek, probably like any couple, or with their kids, they might fight. But they just like sort of collected all the nice memories, which was cute. So yeah, I like the ending. I think it was a very good ending. Yeah, though it did not make me cry.
It's a very moving ending to a movie, but it's you know, very sad that, you know, Bleek is a tragic character that we don't notice in this film, because really he's a man who lost it all, and it's all because we don't know that.
You're assuming that
he did lose it all. He lost his lips. He lost the woman he really loved. He lost his only way of making money, because all he knows is music. And it's all because of a black woman.
What?
His mama set up this man to fail. I'm going full on.
She wasn't even that bad.
I'm joking. I'm fully joking. I just had to take it there. Red pill.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the mystery of the movie is that we will never know if that's how it actually ended, or if that's that was his fever dream or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, because honestly, like, from that scene where he had depression in the apartment, after that, all of it could be a fever dream. Mm-hmm. Right? Him going to the concert, him meeting with Indigo, and then him having that life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we'll never know.
We will never know. And
Spike Lee comes up here and
tells it what it really is. Yeah, just to go back to that black woman part, no, it's not because of a black woman. I just think, the fact that his mother is gone from the rest of this film and she's never brought up again, I really think that highlights, the trauma that is Bleek that isn't talked about enough. You know what I mean? Because, he's like a child prodigy that was forced to be. But, his life has been the blues because it's been dedicated towards the blues and jazz and stuff like that. And, he doesn't actually really play the blues, the real blues, as in like, this is sad, until I think the very end, when he can't play anymore. You know what I mean? Then that's when we see him trying to struggle for the notes, try to find the way. Everything else that he did before was like you said, practice. Yeah. The training he went through.
He thought jazz was his supreme love, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
It's the
and I love the addition that they named their child Miles.
Like that Miles Davis.
Cute. Yes.
Yeah.
Because he loved Miles Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good, cute addition.
Yeah. And the movie ends really happily with a quote from John Coltrane, that God is basically within us and that is the true love supreme, you know what I mean? And, the film is just beautiful in its ending, but because it paints such a perfect picture on a flawed man, I just find that so tragic, So, love this film, love it a lot. There are some plot holes with, basically just Giant's character, I would say. Maybe some scenes that could have been cut with the music, for brevity of time. But overall, it's a very enjoyable film, holds up well, and I give it a solid 8.5. Give it an 8.5. You?
Yeah. Overall, I also really enjoyed it. Like I said, I felt the length a bit, though, like, it didn't bother me that much. And overall, like, the acting was great and everything, and the music was actually great. Like, I didn't want the music scenes to be cut, honestly. But, yeah, and I like just the culture in it. I like the vibe of the movie. I would recommend it to my friends as well. So I think I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay. The Turkish translation of this film is...
Between Two Women.
Has there been a Turkish film like this?
Between Two Women?
Yeah.
I'm sure there has been. Like, I can't think of it on top of my head, but...
Okay. Is this one of Denzel's best films, or is it just okay when we compare it to, like, Denzel performances?
I think it's one of his best performances. Yeah. I think it's just that the character he's playing, maybe it's not given enough credit because it's not like a more serious character. But I think, that like him learning how to play the trumpet and stuff like that, that's like real dedication.
Yeah, so. That's real dedication. Shows real talent. I think it is one of his best roles, definitely. I think it might be better than Glory.
I think it might be better than Mississippi Masala.
Oh, we haven't. I wish we reviewed that when we were watching movies a lot too. But anyway, we'll wrap this up here. So this has been Mo Better Blues. I believe this is episode 119 or 120. Y'all send any movie requests our way and catch y'all on the next one. Peace.